Good evening and welcome. My name is Karen West and I'm the Director of Events for Book Passage. And if you're new to our Book Passage author series, I welcome you, and to those of you who are returning, welcome back. I want you to know that we have a whole series of events up on YouTube under Book Passage's channel. So I hope that you will take a look at our archives. We've been offering since the beginning of the pandemic a full array of bright minds talking about wonderful topics, a full range in the arts and humanities and cooking and sciences and poetry and dogs and cats and everything. So there's something for everybody. And I hope that you will check us out and return time and time again. And I wanted you to know that today's will definitely be up there on the archives. So if you like what you see and you want to go back and reference it and watch it and tell friends about it, it will be up there. And we'd really love to see you hit us time and time again. We want to see those numbers ratchet up and see you partake of what we've so carefully curated for you. I wanted to tell you, if you don't know about Book Passage at all, we're located in the Bay Area. We have one massive Mecca store in Corte Madera, and then we have another small jewel of a store at the San Francisco Ferry Building, the historic Ferry Building. And both stores are open. We want you to come in. Everything is careful and safe and ready for you to shop and touch books again and talk to our booksellers. We're ready for you and we welcome you back. So I hope that you will visit us in either location. And of course, our online presence is always there 24 hours a day. So shop recklessly and madly and often with us, because that's what keeps us alive and able to keep bringing you this programming. I am so excited about this book today, 72 Reasons to be Vegan. I have to tell you that once you read this book, you will think of 1,000 reasons to be vegan, because what it does is it works like a tree, like there's branches on it. And each chapter that you read takes you someplace that blossoms into more and more ideas about it. It's absolutely captivating. They've written really good, solid information that's candid, informative. And you know what I'm going to say mostly about it? It's life-changing. It's life-changing. I'm showing you a small slip of a book that you could duck into your purse, throw it on the counter in your kitchen, leaf through it at will, and you will find things that are going to absolutely illuminate and change your life. I cannot say enough of what I think about what they put down here. And we're going to go through it and we're going to talk about it and excavate it and explore it. But I want to tell you why these two people are uniquely poised to bring this to you. Jean Stone, I love that you have a past in the Peace Corps. I just think that sets the whole stage for everything. But you've written over 45 books, and they're on a whole broad range of subjects. He's done everything, very eclectic. And one of the books that I love so much that was seminal for me was Forks Over Knives. It's just something that I've given to so many people and found so life-changing. And I can tell that you have a very eclectic appetite. But it is clear through what you've chosen to work on that you care deeply about people and animals both. And therefore, I think you care about the entire planet. And so it's evident that your career in life has been devoted to this endeavor and this research. And Kathy Freston, I think you will have seen her all over the media. I saw her on Dr. Oz, I've seen her on Oprah. She's certainly been on Good Morning America. She writes beautiful health and wellness books that are tremendously appealing. The Lean, Quantum Wellness, Clean Protein. She cares about you having your best life. And I think that's a really important endeavor in life as well. And as she just told us before we came on, she's a woman that drives around with a bunch of books in her cars. And if she runs into you and there's a book that you need, she's got it in the back seat and she gives it away. I think that this is evidence that these two people, there's a lot of passion in this book. And I will say this about their publisher, there was a lot of passion for this book because it is so darn appealing, very appealing. So I'm going to open the discussion up now. And I think we're going to start with your own path to health and wellness. Like, what brought you to veganism? What was it that turned you to this? And tell us a little bit about your own path to exploration in vegan eating.
Kathy, you go first.
Okay, Karen, I just want to say thank you for that amazing introduction. And it is such an honor and a pleasure to be here because we love bookstores like yours. It is just so awesome. And you were talking about the passion. I love to feel books with my hands. And when I love a book, I buy 10 copies and I put it in my car because I'm always meeting people who have that. And not just my book. I mean, other people's books that I love to give them out and share because it's a great way to connect. And, lift people up. So thank you for that. So I was writing on evolving as a human being in relationships and work in your spiritual life. And so I was always encouraging through my books to look deeply at things, consider things from different angles, and see where you could tweak and improve. And I realized that I didn't really have much awareness around my food. And food is obviously something I am partaking in at least 3 times a day. And I thought, I should probably look under the hood of where my food comes from, because otherwise I'm a hypocrite. I'm writing these books on how to wake up and be more connected and everything. And I really don't know to any great extent how my food arrives to my plate. And so I started thinking about this, and around the same time, I was playing with my little dog, Lotzi. She was on her back. Her little legs were kicking out, and I was rubbing her belly. And I just thought to myself, oh, I love this dog. I love animals so much. And then this little voice in my head said, well, if you love animals so much, why are you eating them? And I guess it's the voice of conscience. I don't know, but it was it was like, oh, what? I never thought about my dog being equal to a food animal like a cow or a pig or a chicken. I just never put it together that they're all animals. So I'm looking at her, and I did a thought experiment. And I imagined her as if she were a food animal moving through the line, in a factory farm, in a slaughterhouse. Don't worry, I'm not going to give any details. I'm not into traumatizing anyone, so don't worry. But I just started thinking about her as if she were a cow or a chicken. And it was so disturbing. And I know my dog so well. I know when she's happy. I know when she's nervous. I know when she's scared. I know when she's like excited. She literally smiles. And so I just know that I would do anything to keep her from feeling fear, and being in a bad spot. So I thought, why am I so, blasé about other animals as they make their way to, my food plate? So in that moment, I challenged myself. I said, I would love to be someone who doesn't eat animals. I don't know how. And God knows I'm probably going to, die an early death, because everybody knows you need animal protein. And everything that I loved was from an animal. So I just felt like, I'm going to do this, but I probably will pay the price. And so I just nudged myself forward, and I started eating differently. And as I was doing the research on plant-based food versus animal food. And of course, lo and behold, I find out that not only am I going to die an early death, I'm probably going to add a decade onto my life. Not only am I going to be, more sluggish because I'm not getting animal protein, I'm going to have more energy. And all the things that I worried about, exactly the opposite, were in store for me. So I just, I leaned into it. I did not go vegan overnight. I probably took about a year, maybe even close to a year and a half. And I just started tweaking things. I'm a big believer in crowding out, not cutting out. And so I would, instead of saying, I can't have beef anymore, I would say, okay, tomorrow night, usually I have a beef burrito, and I'm going to try a bean burrito. And I would just do what I love to do, except for I swapped out the proteins. And, I just found my way, and I became very, very passionate about it. Number one, because of how good I felt, but number two, because all the things that I started learning about being vegan or plant-based, as, different term for it. And that I kind of became, I don't want to say an expert, but I became, someone really passionate about my writing in this field. And then, and when Jean and I met, we've been noodling this idea for a while. So Jean, I'll hand it to you.
I was probably one of those people who thought I thought about food, but I really didn't. And I had a good diet, and I've written many books on health, so I was concerned about carbs and protein and fat. but I never really looked into it or had a conscience about it. And then one day, I got a phone call from one of my agents saying, do you want to meet this firefighter in Texas and do a book with him? And I said, no, I don't really think so. But he said, no, this guy's really good. And he's vegan. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. So this guy, Rip Esselstyn, turned out to be a vegan firefighter, got his whole firehouse to go vegan. And we did end up writing, actually, we wrote The Engine to Diet and then 2 other books. And to do the book, I thought, well, if you're going to do, I don't know, if I believe in participatory journalism. If you're going to write about something and you can do it, then do it. So I thought I'll try it and, whatever. And within a month, I was hooked. It was like all of a sudden, and it's really hard to explain to people. I had this awareness I hadn't had before. I thought I was so conscious. I thought I was like a good person. I thought, well, to some degree, but I didn't think things through. Like Kathy was saying, I didn't really do the work on my food. And once I started understanding the health benefits, which is what we wrote about in that first book, I met some of the people involved in animal protection, and I began to see some of those horrible films and graphics about what happens to animals. I got really worried about that. And I've always been environmentally conscious. I've always thought of myself as an environmentalist, but then I began to read more and more about how animal agriculture is really one of the biggest contributors to greenhouse gases and climate change. And if you're having an animal diet, you're probably not doing a lot of good for the environment. So between health and animals and the environment, I thought, I'll do this. And it didn't turn out to be nearly as hard. Now, I know people who went vegan in 1985 when they basically had to make their own soy milk and they had to do whatever they needed to do. But, by the time I got there a little early, I think 2005 or so. And a lot of my friends thought I had an eating disorder, or they just thought I was nuts. But the fact is, in the last 15 years, going vegan has gone from being kind of difficult, maybe, to being incredibly easy now, because, all the Possible burgers and the cashew milks and all the other great stuff that you could have. So it took, it's held, and it's something I really care about.
And I just want to interject that this is how, so Jean and I met, we've been really great friends for years. And, he's written so many books on health and longevity. And I've written so many books on, all animal sentience and living your best life, as you said. And we were talking about it. It was like, there's no book that just gives all the reasons why you might want to consider going vegan in one place. And we're so inundated. I don't know about you guys. There's so much to read, from, the books stacked on my night table to newspapers to newsletters and all that stuff. We wanted to keep it really brief and have each chapter, each reason, be no more than 1 or 2 pages. So everything is very bottom lined. And we just wanted to cover everything from great sex to climate change, to preventing heart disease, to enjoying your martini. So it's kind of written in the spirit of for an ADD brain. You can just pop in and get, one reason that you're interested in, and then you get another hit, and you never get bogged down by so much information. Everything is very bottom lined and sourced. So, we're not just crazy and saying stuff. And so, yeah, we had a great time. Jean and I love to spend time together. So we had a good excuse to hang out quite a bit.
I also want to put in a little bit of a plug for the publisher, because Workman did, I think, a terrific job. They really fully understand what we're trying to do. So they created a package that's really fun. It's easy to read. It's got graphics. They put together something that I think if you're in a bookstore and you picked it up, you'd be interested in it just because it looks so good. So we're really grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mentioned that at the start, that I love the candor and the style, and I love the fact that you kept it to 1 to 2 pages, and it really feels like you're having a conversation with me, like you're laying down some stuff that I'm going to pick up, but you're doing it in a way that's very like, there's no condescending. It's no like, it's like a good friend talking to you right across the table.
Okay.
Stylistically, you hit that. I wanted to say something about, before the pandemic, I worked in an office with 4 millennials, people between the ages of 25 and 30 years old, and every single one of them was a vegan. Can you say something about generationally how you're reaching people and what it's like for people my age, close to 60, to come to it, and then how the millennials just seem to pick it up, understand it, embrace, and run with it? And at some of our larger vegan-oriented events with cookbooks and stuff like that, we see a sea of younger faces. But I think it's so important to get those of us who are 40, 50, and 60 engaged. This book appeals across all things, but can you talk a little bit about the generational qualities of coming over to this way of eating?
What we found is that, as I said, there's different pillars of veganism: health, animal protection, the environment, and also athletic performance. Well, what we found is that the older people tend to come to veganism because of health. Their doctors told them they're having too much meat, their cholesterol levels too high. This is something that becomes a real serious health issue for them. Animal protection, I think, appeals to anybody. You can be 20 and care about animals, you can be 80 and care about animals. But I have found that when you're talking about millennials, the reason they usually come to veganism is the environment, because they're really clued into the fact that as I said before, animal agriculture is terrible for the environment, is major contributor to greenhouse gases and climate change. So it's very hard to think of yourself as an environmentalist and still have a animal protein-based diet.
Yeah, makes sense.
And we're also at this intersection now of awareness meets availability of good food. So there's, everybody's on, videos, seeing slaughterhouse videos. Everyone's seeing what's happening with climate change all over the world, with, disasters and mass migration. And people are kind of seeing what is happening as a result of eating animal protein. And so you've got this awareness on the one hand that's intersecting with really good food. Like Jean was saying, back in the day, you'd have to make your own soy milk. It was not easy. Oh-dee-do, there's a little kitty. So now you've got so much good food. So that when people are like, wait a second, they wake up to this stuff, but they're going out for burgers that are amazing, the Impossible Burger or Beyond Burger. There's veggie sausage. There's incredible alternative milks, made from oats or almond or rice or coconut. You've got amazing ice cream. So it's easier now. It's not the drudgery that it was 30 years ago. It's just a different world now.
Another thing that I think that comes up is that the word vegan itself, I find that people over the age of, say, 45, when they hear vegan, they think, nasty little mean person in a health food store's got a bad. But I find that 25-year-olds, when they heard the vegan, it's like, whatever, vegetarian, vegan, flexitarian. Yeah. It doesn't have that same kind of weirdness it had maybe to somebody who first heard the term many years ago and has a really bad association with it.
And vegans have changed a lot. Probably people who were vegan activists, 30 years ago might have been not so nice and, militant and judgmental. And I think what we know now is that that's a very unappealing way to be. So if you want to be an activist for kind eating, you want to be a kind person. So it's just, I think the whole mood has shifted around veganism.
And of course, the number of celebrities who are now vegan.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The number of athletes, the number of triathletes, the number of bodybuilders, Hollywood stars, so that maybe in the year 2000, when you were thinking about veganism, you might think, well, maybe was Gandhi a vegan, But now you can look, just about anybody, can find somebody who they really admire and discover, oh, they're vegan, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you're speaking to the ethos of it, that it's a kinder world. I have found that to be a huge thread that runs through it, that it's environmentally better, that it's better socially. It's like it's something that makes you feel better about animals and the care of animals. I think that that's a really important psychological aspect of it. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about some of the challenges as you made the transition to eating this way. And I want you to be honest. I want you to talk about the things that you missed, the way you replace them. I want you to kind of, because in the book you do talk about it. It's like, talk about some of the ways. I know that Kathy, you grew up Southern in a family that, ate a lot of.
Yeah, I grew up in Doraville, Georgia, and my protein smoothie back then was I would throw in the blender some milk and some fruit and a raw egg. And that was my protein smoothie. It's shocking that I didn't die of salmonella, but I didn't. And I ate everything. I ate my mom's cooking. I had chicken fried steak. I had barbecued ribs. My dad threw a steak on the grill once a week, and I didn't think anything about it. So when I started thinking about doing a different, a plant-based diet, I was like, oh my God, everything I eat is from an animal. I had no problem with eating pate. I mean, I just didn't think about it. And so when I thought about my favorite foods, like, oh my God, I'm going to miss cheese so much. I love cheese so much. And I really love, sausage on pizza. I mean, that's one of my favorite things. So luckily, with that awareness, I started seeking out alternatives. And so I get to enjoy my burger. I have my pizza with vegan cheese and veggie sausage. And so I get to enjoy all of those things that I grew up loving, just tweaked so that they're kinder versions of what I used to have.
Yeah, for me, I would say that I grew up like Kathy, eating lots of, in fact, I pretty much only ate meat growing up because that's really all I cared about. For me, I think the more difficult thing, it really wasn't about finding food, because I had friends at that point who had gone vegan. For me, it was more that a lot of my friends really thought I was nuts, or they thought I had an eating disorder. Or they just thought there was just something wrong, because again, this was 15 years ago. And in fact, they would say things like, are you really vegan? I don't understand what that is.
Like an alien. Yeah. Vegan,
They would ask things like, "Can you have bread?"
Oh, that's a very common one. Can you have caffeine? Right. Are you not allowed to have gluten? Right? I'm like, no. I'm vegan. Just means nothing from an animal. I'm good. I'm good with the sugar and the caffeine and the alcohol and the gluten and all of that other stuff. So.
And then I had some friends who were kind of evil, and they would do things like, that pea soup you had. Well, I put ham in it. Yeah. I was thinking, well, that's actually rude and not very polite. But it was just, as I said, it was weird. Now, of course, it isn't at all. And in fact, it's funny that a number of my friends who made fun of me have actually become vegan, or at least if they're not vegan, they're 90% plant strong and they're on their way. So it's kind of one of those things where you look back and you think, wow, 15 years ago, these people were the ones making fun of me, and now they're the ones who are asking me for help. And particularly a lot of my friends who've had health issues, I've actually had to guide a lot of them through, you can do it, it's really easy. And both Kathy and I spent a lot of time with other people helping them out to make this transition, because as I said, it's really not that hard to do these days.
Can I ask, I know that a number of good restaurants in almost any place that you go, again, I'm speaking from a pretty privileged area. I live in the Bay Area, Northern California. Our farmers markets are zenith. Our store is at one of the most famous farmers markets in the world. So I know that restaurants are putting more and more items on there, but I bet that was a challenge at some point to go to a restaurant and order a good meal and feel that you were represented, that there was stuff
totally.
To eat. But also, what is it like to go over to dinner at somebody's house? I mean, let's say you're invited to a dinner party, to something like, do you have to tell everybody ahead of time, or do you find yourself pushing around the plate with, the salad? Like, what in those two scenarios, how do you maneuver and get fed?
Okay, so my favorite restaurant is up in Santa Barbara. It's a steakhouse called Lucky's Steakhouse, and I just love it. And as Jean knows, I love a good martini on the weekends. And so I would go into Lucky's, and all my friends would be there. We'd have a table of 6, whatever, and I'd have a martini, and they'd have their thing. And then I'm having a baked potato and a side of broccoli. And I said to the manager, I said, I will pay money for a good option here, but he said, Kathy, we're a steakhouse. We're not a vegetarian restaurant. I said, I know, but there's something called the Veto Vote. And that is where if you're in a group of 4 or even 3 or 6, whatever, and you're with some friends and only one of you is vegan, everybody's going to go to the place where the one vegan and everybody else can have something. So they're going to veto the restaurant if there's nothing for that person. So why not have something for everyone? So he put on, and I was like, I don't want a side of, I don't want salad. I like hearty food. And I think most people, when they're out, they want something really meaty, as it were. And so he added on a burger, a really hearty burger. And then he also added a tofu dish, and it just flies out of the kitchen now. 2 of the most successful items on his menu. So I'm so happy. And I would, if you're someone whose restaurant doesn't have something, I would definitely let them know about the Veto Vote, and as far as the going to someone's house, I always just say, hey, I'll call the person up, or I'll email them or text them, and I'll say, hey, I just want you to know I'm vegan. So no need to, buy an extra piece of fish for me. But I will bring something so you don't have to worry about it. And I'll usually bring something, and then everybody's like, oh my God, I want what she's having. So I always bring extra, just to sort of share the love and everything. And I don't want anyone to go out of their way. Usually hosts are pretty grateful and pretty accommodating. They'll probably make something anyway. But I like to bring stuff just to make it easier. And it's a nice conversation piece anyway.
Yeah, I find that restaurants, maybe 15 years ago, it was a little difficult, and you did end up with a salad or maybe some sides. I was just in Milwaukee recently, which nobody would think of as the home of vegans. And there were 3 excellent vegan restaurants that we tried. And I was really surprised. And they said, oh no, business is incredibly good. So you don't have to be in a privileged area. I mean, not that Milwaukee's not privileged, but it's not the city you necessarily associate with anything. I mean, they're very proud of cheese, and they're very proud of beer. And now they can also be very proud of the fact they have some really good vegan restaurants. As far as going to people's houses, I find that, usually if someone's going to invite you over to dinner, they know you. So for the most part, what I find happens is that there'll be like a casserole and a fish dish, and I'll have the casserole and not the fish thing. Or in other words, they'll accommodate. I'm not as good as Kathy. I don't normally bring my own food because I feel my food is not that good. But maybe if it were, I could bring it. But I do find that people really are just sort of like cool about it. And a lot of times, again, people get curious. They want to know, oh, well, where are you getting your protein from if you're not having fish? Or where you're getting from your calcium from if you don't have dairy? And so it does become part of the conversation. And then occasionally, if I do get invited to somebody's house where I don't know them, then again, I'm polite. I eat what I can, and I do my best not to mention it. One of the horrible jokes about vegans is, how do you know if a person's vegan? Don't worry, they'll tell you. And,
That's me. That's me. I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I'm like, hey, I'm vegan, because I love it. If someone says something about my food, I'm like, oh, it's vegan. But yeah, so guilty.
I'm a little calmer. I try to keep
I'm proud. What can I tell you? I love it.
I'm proud too. No, I'm totally proud. But I feel like, if they're curious, they'll ask, and if they're not curious, I'm not really going to talk about it much.
You guys look good. You look good, and that's also a calling card for the effects of the way that you eat. And I wanted to say also that we do a lot of events where we serve meals and stuff. And I tell you that everybody always wants to eat the vegetarian dishes. It was like being on a plane back when they served food. It's like people think they want the chicken, but when they see the vegetarian option, that's what they gravitate towards. do you mind if we dip a little bit into some of the little mini chapters just for fun and talk a little bit about some of the topics?
Yeah.
One about like, tell us something about cows, burps, and farts. I found that a very interesting chapter just about the environment, and talk a little bit about cows and what's going on with them. And also maybe thread that in with a discussion about water, because we're going to run out of water as a planet sometime soon. So tell us a little bit about the output of cows and a little bit about their environment and what's going on with water.
I'll talk about the cows, and Jean, maybe you can talk about the water. So cows are ruminants. And in order to digest their food, they ferment the food. You know, they have these 4 stomachs and they're fermenting the food. So they get it really gassy. And that gas comes out as burps and farts. And that burping and farting is methane. And methane is it has 28 times the warming potential of carbon dioxide. So it's a powerful global warming gas. And you just think, okay, well, whatever, it's, you know, a cow burping and farting, and how bad can that be? But then you consider the billions and billions of animals that are raised for slaughter every year, and that is a lot of methane. So that methane is trouble, number one. And then the second part of that is if you look at the Amazon, the rainforest, where they're chopping down forests to grow crops in order to feed livestock. So that's another part of it, is that the rainforest trees are like carbon sinks. They're like holding tanks, and they hold carbon dioxide. So when you cut down forests, you cut down trees, all that carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere. So again, that's a real problem for global warming. So you're not only just all this methane, but you're creating all this release of gases, and plus there's all the added stuff of, you know, trucking the animals, using all that gas, and all the resources that go into raising livestock. But it's 18% of the of climate change, of global warming is accredited to animal agriculture. So that's a lot.
I just want to add about cows that one of my favorite chapters in the book is a chapter that cows love classical music. First of all, I love the idea that somebody experimented with that. It's like people sitting around saying, "Oh, what do you want to think about today? I wonder if cows like Bach or Scarlatti or whatever." But the fact is, people say, "Oh, cows are just stupid beasts." They're really wonderful creatures, and I love the idea that if you just happen to be the kind of guy who's got a violin near a pasture and you start playing, the cows will come over and they'll listen to the music. They're wonderful creatures.
Wonderful. Did you want to say a little bit, Jean, about the amount of water it takes to take care of livestock, or what it is to do crop versus something about our water situation?
That's just a simple one. The fact is, there is only so much fresh water that we have available. And I don't remember the percentage right now, but an enormous amount is going into feeding livestock as opposed to reaching people. There are about 20 countries in the world that have almost no access to fresh water, and yet we're starting to develop animal agriculture in those countries, and I don't even know how they're going to bring the water there. So one of the issues is that when you only have so much fresh water and it's going to animals, are we taking it away from people? And the answer is yes, we are.
And raising animals for food, you have to have so much fertilizer, grow so much food, and all of that stuff gets run off into the water. So you have these vast waste lagoons, like from poop and pee, and they have these huge huge lagoons of waste, and it goes into the groundwater, and it's very toxic. Obviously, it's sprayed on the fields, lots of contamination that way. So we're not only using up our fresh water, but we're contaminating the water that we do have.
Right. We do have a chapter called "The World is Becoming Overrun with Animal Poop." We have a whole chapter on the issues of poop. And as Kathy points out, one of them is that it's leaching into our water system, which is already fragile, particularly in America, where our infrastructure is so weak. The last thing we want to do is have anything leach into it. But poop is one, we definitely don't want to have poop in there.
Bad, yeah.
I always think that there is a dissonance between eating meat and if you would be capable of slaughtering an animal. And I was talking to a friend just the other night when I was reading your book, and he said that he had spent a time living on a communal farm where they plucked all the vegetables out of the garden, and it was really beautiful, and everything with the radishes and the carrots and everything was beautiful. And then he got to the slaughtering of the chicken and said it was hard to do. And more than that, it really turned him away from eating the meal afterwards, even if you took it all the way through the steps. And I think that as we raise children from a very young age, we kind of cultivate that dissonance, don't we? Where we kind of psychologically just tune out the reality of how it gets to where it's on your kitchen counter and where you're preparing it.
Yeah.
Do you find that that's something to combat, is to try and tune people back into understanding the humanity of an animal and therefore turning them off to eating them? Is that, I think there's something super key.
For sure. I mean, the culture would have us believe that this is normal, necessary, and normal and necessary, and it's not. Of course it's not, but that's what we're fed constantly. And part of what we talk about is you really get happy when you start eating this way, not only because you're getting all the phytonutrients from the fruits and vegetables, and that's feeding your brain and protecting your brain in a really healthy way, but you're also, you have to sort of be a little numb, shut down, not consciously, I'm not saying consciously, but you have to be a little shut down to not think about what went into the meat. And so we tend to just keep a certain amount of emotion locked up. And when you stop eating that stuff, something happens. You're not afraid to look at animals like with clear eyes, and there is something that happens. You get a real connectedness with the ecology of the world, with nature, with animals, with relationships. It's something really happens. It's quite lovely. And you can look at the culture and see how sick it is, how truly, I think in 100 years, we're going to look back and say, it's crazy how we raised billions upon billions upon billions of animals every year to slaughter them. And the animals are mostly like kids. They're adolescents. They're not older animals. They're kind of like children. Their age, they don't live a long time. So they're very young, and it's you start looking at that and it's kind of barbaric. And we're not coming from a judgmental place at all. But once you start thinking about it, if you vault yourself into the future, it's probably not going to be pretty when they look back on us.
There's the famous Paul McCartney quote, which we all like, which is, if slaughterhouses had glass walls, there wouldn't be any slaughterhouses.
Yeah.
If anybody actually goes to see a slaughterhouse, if anybody actually goes to see how these animals are treated, it's very difficult to continue.
And of course you can't. They don't invite you in for good reason. They don't want people in.
I also want to add that another issue with slaughterhouses, of course, is the human issue, in that the people who are working at slaughterhouses, these are not people who have, PhDs from Stanford. These are the people who can't find any other job. It's a horrible place to work. The salary is minimal. They're treated badly. The whole process. So it isn't just the process.
It's a human rights issue for sure.
Yeah, it's a human issue too.
Mm-hmm.
If you only were talking about one thing, you guys just summed that so beautifully, Kathy and Jean. That was just like a very core jewel of what's in this book, is what you've just talked about right now. Can you say something a little bit about, I like the 2 pages on soy, because I was completely, have been boomeranged around about soy about 100 times through my life. And you come up with saying that go ahead, have it, it's okay. But there was a lot, it was sort of like butter in the day or things like that, kind of go back and forth. Is it okay? Is it not okay? Can you say something to everybody a little bit about soy?
Well, we say that you do not have to fear for your chest. So women do not need to worry about breast cancer. Men do not need to worry about man boobs. Soy is absolutely not necessary. We are not like proponents of it and saying, hey, you got to, soy is the most awesome thing. It's awesome. You don't need it, but you also don't need to be afraid of it. So So most women are afraid of soy because of breast cancer. And if I can explain it this way, there's a small plane, like let's say it's a private plane. It's small, maybe had, 5 seats, 10 seats, something like that. And it's pulling up to a jetway so that the people can get off the plane. So this small plane pulls into the jetway, and that jetway is the estrogen receptor in your body. And the small plane is phytoestrogen, which is from soy, which is a plant estrogen. Now, because that small plane is parked there, there's a big jumbo jet that wanted to come into that jetway, but it can't because it's now blocked by that small plane. So the larger estrogen, the mammalian estrogen, is blocked by the phytoestrogen. Phytoestrogen is very, very different. So it's actually protective against that other estrogen. So if a woman is concerned with breast cancer, she's got a diagnosis, she's very likely to hear from her doctor, eat more soy. The studies show that women who have been diagnosed with breast cancer actually fare much better long-term if they add soy into their diets. And of course, men have been eating soy for thousands of years in Asia, and there were no man boobs. So that's not a problem either.
All you have to do is look at Japan and China, which have very low incidences of cancer, and yet they have very high amounts of soy in their diet. So if you do hear bad stuff about soy, it's usually coming from people who have some financial reason to want you to stop eating it.
Because it's an excellent alternative for meat and dairy. It's very high in protein. It's a complete protein, and it turns into a beautiful milk. It's really easy to work with cooking, and it tastes really delicious. It's very nutritious. So not to be all conspiracy about it, but it would be wise of the animal industries to get out in front and sort of muddy the waters on the health of soy.
It is true, however, that there is some research that suggests that fermented soy, like tempeh, may be better for you than non-fermented, but that's still one of those ongoing things. I happen to love tempeh, so I eat as much as I can.
It's an acquired taste, but it's
good. An acquired taste. You get there. But that's another thing about being vegan is that so much of it's an acquired taste. I mean, when I look back and I thought, well, I would just have hamburgers and French fries. I didn't know about kohlrabi, and I didn't know about asparagus even, or these vegetables that have become a major part of my diet. And as Kathy said earlier, it's not that you stop eating things because I can't have that. It's that you add all these wonderful things to your diet, and then there's no room for the stuff that you used to like because you don't like it much anymore, and you have all these incredible options now.
Yeah. And can we talk for a minute about beans? Oh my God. When you went into beans, I know I love my farmer's market here has so many amazing beans, like Christmas beans, eye of the goat. Like there's all these incredible heritage beans that cook up in these beautiful colors, and they're all creamy and buttery and everything. And they're amazing. And, when we grow up in our, standard American home, it's like, okay, you have some black beans out of the can, which is totally fine. I love black beans out of the can for sure. They're great in a taco or burrito, whatever. But it's also, you get into, like Jean was saying, you really start discovering all this great, great food. And, the longest living people in the world are called blue zones. And it's these regions where people basically eat plant-based, and they're eating beans probably 2-3 times a day. So we're big fans of beans.
I have to put a plug in for Rancho Gordo because they make go. Just if you ever want to give a present to people and you're wondering what to give them an array of Rancho Gordo beans. They do
100%
packaging, and you will enliven their lives. They will love it. It's a great gift to give to people.
100%.
A little bit about the economics of eating vegan, because I love that aspect of it, the aspect that you all of a sudden have a lot more money, because we all know that when we go to the butcher and to the other, buy the crazy cheeses and different dairy products and the meats, the bill ratchets up. So what was it like to enjoy having more money because of that? And then also, can you talk about what it is to get people, lower income people, desiring and understanding that this is a better way to eat and that it'll help them economically?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've been talking about beans, and beans are one of the staples of a vegan diet. and they're really not terribly expensive, certainly compared to prime rib or the meats or the lobsters that people have. And there is a rap. People do say, oh, well, if you're vegan, you must be spending a lot of money. And maybe that was true a long time ago, but it really isn't true now at all. So I think that I've saved a great deal of money by having vegetables. I'm very lucky to have a farmer's market nearby that has very reasonable prices. So I go on Sunday and I stock up for the week and I get all these great vegetables. And then I don't really have to spend any more money on anything again.
And the regular grocery stores have a great array of vegan food now. I mean, and, you know, you can get beans and tortillas and avocados and, you know, rice and barley. And I make a big soup once or twice a week. I make a 3-bean soup and just like all kinds of tomatoes and onions and carrots. And I also make a big lentil soup. So inexpensive. I have it at least once a day with some crusty sourdough bread and a little bit of olive oil and salt. And it's amazing. So that's really inexpensive. And also when you look at it long term, you're not only saving money at the grocery store, but you're saving money in medical expenses and time lost from work when you're not feeling well, you don't have energy, you get sick, you get one of these illnesses. So it really, it saves money immediately when you're at the grocery store, and it saves money long-term because you're not bogged down by all these expenses from expensive diseases.
The other question is a tougher one. How do you get people who might not normally know about veganism, who might be living in food deserts, to understand the benefits of veganism? And there are people who are working on this. I know a group of people who are putting together for the bodegas in New York City, these cabinets that contain only vegan food and have special prices for them. So yes, that's a really, it's a good issue. I mean, a good question and an issue, and something that, yeah, people are really working on to try to address. Because if it's just people who read books at bookstores, who are my favorite people, but you want to get past that, and you want to make sure you reach people who you might not normally think, oh, yeah, a vegan diet is a good one. So yeah, that's something we really do need to work on.
I agree. And we also probably need to talk a little bit about the political action of it, talking about the meat industry and industries that would like to keep that all ramped up. How do you propose that they transition? It's like the oil companies, transitioning to electric cars and things like that. How do you see moving that forward as a political agenda? How do you replace that economy? Like, do you have ideas about that?
There are a number of people in the vegan world who are working with farmers to try to make them understand that they may be facing a dead end. This may not be the industry of the future, and working with them to understand that they might want to raise mushrooms instead. They might want to go to soy. They might want to go to plants. So there's a lot of re-education going on. As far as the huge companies, that's a different issue, because no one's going to go to a major company and say, okay, stop. But those are the companies that, if you look at what they're doing with their investment money, they're investing in Impossible Foods, they're investing in these plant-based alternatives, because they too see the writing on the wall. So from an economic perspective, both large and small, yeah, there are people working on both sides of it.
And I just want to point out, we have a chapter in our book that was guest written by a very, very good friend of mine named Jennifer Barrett. And she and her husband, Rodney, are 3rd-generation chicken farmers. And they went into the chicken business because they thought that they could live in their beautiful farm, and they took it over from her parents. And they're very humble, hardworking people. They loved the land. They just wanted a very simple life. And it is unbelievable what they have had to go through. They never had health insurance. They are always having to reinvest in equipment. They've always been $1 million in the hole. So they say, actually, every time you buy chicken, you hurt a farmer, because you are driving that farmer further into an industry that is, like, in their words, indentured servitude. And so they really felt strongly about getting out. They had all kinds of viruses. They had stuff going on in their eyes from the chicken sheds. And they started eating plant-based food. They started feeling so good. And they were like, what are we doing? And they started connecting the dots. And they got out of the business, and they're transitioning now. And it's called the Barrett Family Farm. And they're amazing human beings, but they're you know, carrying a lot of debt with them and trying to get out of it, because these huge companies just keep the farmers down. And so I think a lot of people, I'm from the South, I have, most of my relatives are down South. And, everyone's of that mind. We're like, but what about the farmers? It's like, this business is no favor to farmers. Farmers would do far better than in a different industry, farming different things like Jean was saying, whether it's mushrooms or something like that, than farming chickens or cows.
Yeah, we really don't want people to go out of business. We don't want to hurt anybody. What we really want to do is try to educate people to understand that if they're looking at how we're going to feed the masses of people, the increasing population, that animal agriculture isn't the answer. And let's try to figure out something that can make us happy, make us healthy, but keep you financially viable.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. A couple of questions are coming in. There's one of them here that said, why do you think people like Oprah Winfrey don't embrace this kind of eating and become like people with big voices and big platforms who have all the education at their fingertips and things like that? What do you think is keeping people from going this way? And one of the people watching wants to know, why did Ellen DeGeneres go so forward with it and then back away from it? Do you guys have any insight into sort of what's going on in the sort of landscape of the public voice about these issues?
I think, celebrities are like, celebrities are just like us, like they say in the magazine. People take forward steps, they take backward steps, they have their own set of reasons. Jean and I are definitely not about assessing anyone's choices or lives. We feel like it's not our business. It's a very personal path and a choice. And we just think it's great that both Oprah and Ellen have given so much attention to it in their various ways. And so we think that's awesome, but it's not our place to really say why someone is doing something or not. I don't know.
I've been very excited because I work in this industry and we run beautiful food and wine programming, and I have loved all the cookbooks that have come out. A number of them vegetarian, but now there's a lot of really good vegan ones. Are you too as excited as I am about all the beautiful cookbooks and the availability of being able to find recipes? And do you have any favorite cookbooks, or where do you source recipes online? What are some of the resources for you for cooking beautiful and exciting contemporary food?
It is kind of remarkable how 15 years ago, there were like 5 or 6 vegan cookbooks, and now you could probably in your bookstore have a whole section on them.
Yeah.
I'm kind of partial slightly to, the cookbooks that I've written, just because, I like them. I did a book called Eat for the Planet Cookbook, which talks about the environmental issues of veganism, and we got some of the best chefs and vegan experts in the country to contribute recipes. So I would say that's certainly one of my favorites. Kathy, what do you like?
Well, my past books have recipes as well, and I of course love that, because it's all about like, for instance, the lean. It's about people who want to perhaps lose weight, get more lean and strong. So we have recipes in there. There's recipes in all my books, but I love my favorite restaurants like Crossroads Kitchen. I just love. It's such a beautiful book, and I just love Tal Ronan's recipes. They may be a little harder than I can do, but I love to look at it. It's beautiful, and that gives me ideas on what to make. So, but yeah, I like to just flip through things, and I tend to be someone who will look at a recipe, look at the book, and then just sort of do it my way. I don't know if I should do that, but I take my inspiration from the books and then just sort of, fidget around.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
I'm not a great cook, but I know what I like, and I do tend to do the same things over and over again. So I'll often take a good recipe and probably make it a little worse, but make it mine.
Without prying into your personal lives, because I think a home life and what your kitchen and your table are like, are either of you in relationships or have families where you have to cook one way for them or the other, or have you brought people over in your personal life? I mean, what is it like? Are your households strictly vegan?
My house is vegan, and not. I sort of tend to back away from the word strict because I want it to be like, a kind thing and a thing of abundance. So I probably maybe 15 years ago, shortly after I went vegan, I just didn't want to have anything in the house. And so it's always been vegan. I wouldn't shoot someone down if they brought over a wheel of cheese, if I was having guests over. But I think, like Jean was saying, our friends kind of know us by now, so they don't do that. But I have a lot of friends and family who are not vegan, and I do not have a problem with it. I really respect everyone's choices, and just like they respect my choices. So I don't have a problem with that. I would have a hard time being in a relationship with someone who is like, let's go out and have some foie gras and a steak or whatever. I don't think I would resonate with that, but no judgment, but just not probably for me.
Yeah, I would say pretty much everything Kathy said is the same for me. I do have a brother and his wife and their 2 kids that we do Thanksgiving together. And my niece is now vegan. My brother will never be vegan. My nephew will never be vegan. And my sister-in-law is thinking about it. So we're all in this different place. And, you just make it work. And we all like each other and respect each other. And so, you deal with it. And, my brother's favorite food for Thanksgiving is bacon wrapped turkey. And, I don't like it, but I don't really, I don't have any, that's all.
I wouldn't have it in my house. I wouldn't have bacon wrapped turkey in my house. But if I went over to his house, then yeah, I've got nothing to say. But I do love having people over for like a big Thanksgiving and making an amazing spread, like really abundant. And I seek to impress people that they can actually, have that traditional meal without having any animal foods.
People are asking if there's recipes in here. I know that there was a chocolate recipe, but are there a couple there? I saw a couple.
There's a few sort of game-changing recipes that because we figure, I have like maybe 7 recipes in my whole repertoire, that I make over and over again. A couple of soups, a certain, casserole, whatever. And we have some pancakes in there that's like, will make you so happy. And we also have sort of a how-to on making cashew cream, because our friend Tall Ronan brought cashew cream into the world, which is like amazing. And it's just so simple to make. And it's one of those things that we wanted to share with everybody, because you have this creamy thing that you can make soups with and desserts and all of that stuff. So it's not a cookbook, but
right, but it's not a recipe book. So
yeah, definitely not a cookbook. No.
Right. This is the book that's going to make you want to go get a recipe book.
That's it. That's what I think. I think that this is going to inspire people to want to go cook beautiful food out of, a recipe book. I want to ask you two, we're almost at the end of our time together. Can you each say something about what the pandemic year has brought to you personally, in your lives, in your kitchens, whatever, the greatest impact it had for you positively this year? Because it's really important for all of us to look at the jewels of this time, because it is a really, really hard time, but there is something very authentic about it. A lot of people have gotten back to connecting with one another, slowing down, exercising, caring about what they're putting in their mouth. I mean, you really will hear these stories across the board. Has any of that happened? What has it been for you this time?
I mean, for me, I just realize how precious life is and how important it is to have people around you that you truly love and care about and want to break bread with. And hopefully that's sourdough bread, because that makes me very happy.
Yeah, and I would agree with what Kathy said. This has been a time of reflection and getting together with people in this strange format and learning how to connect with people, only seeing like the heads and their shoulders. But I would say that one of the nicest things about this, if there is such a thing, is discovering who I really care for and who I wanted to keep in touch with and who wanted to keep in touch with me. And I would say I didn't necessarily think I got it right. I thought some people I might have been closer to, I wasn't, and some people have really reached out to me to make sure I'm okay. And it's been really nice.
Wonderful. Well, you two, I'm going to tell you, are doing very, very good work. This is a really important book. And I want to say this is the sort of book that you should go in and buy 10 of them or 12 of them, and even leave them on tables places, put them places for people. I mean, it's the sort of thing that makes a really delightful gift. And I could see somebody pairing it with a really good vegan cookbook. And at our bookstore, there are tons of them out there, beautiful ones, and lay this right on top and wrap a ribbon around it and give it to people, knowing that you're going to excite them and change their lives. It's tremendously appealing. More than that, it's as I opened with saying, it's life-changing. And if you can give people the gift of that, what better gift could you give? So I urge you, those of you who are watching, share this talk that we've had together with your friends and family. Turn people on to this. This is a book that people should be turned on to. And Jean and Kathy, I just want to thank you for the time, spending your evening with us generously, and keep up the good work. I mean, this is really phenomenal.
What a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us.
So thank you, everybody that's watching. Thank you both. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Bye.